Welcome, dear soul. Let your body rest. Let your mind drift. Tonight, we journey to the very beginning, to a time before time, when darkness covered everything. And from that stillness, God spoke. Light was born. And so began the most beautiful story ever told, the story of creation. Close your eyes. Let go. Feel the weight of the day melt from your shoulders. Breathe in and out now. Let's begin. In the beginning, there was nothing but silence. A quiet void stretched endlessly, timeless and still, waiting for a breath, a whisper, a spark of something more. From that silence, a voice broke through, calm, deliberate, and full of purpose. Let there be light. And there was light. Welcome to heavenly sleep, where sacred stories come alive and guide you gently into rest. If this journey brings you peace, consider subscribing and joining us beneath the stars each night. The light did not explode. It bloomed softly, like the first light of dawn slipping through the edge of a curtain. Darkness drew back, not in fear, but in reverence. It was the first moment of contrast, of clarity. And in that gentle awakening, time itself was born. On the first day, light and darkness were named day and night. They danced around each other like old friends, each giving space to the other. There was no rush, no noise, only rhythm. On the second day, a great expanse was formed, a sky above, a mystery stretching endlessly. The waters below reflected it like a mirror, creating a symmetry that calmed the eye and stilled the soul. There was no storm, only serenity. Clouds floated like gentle thoughts across the firmament, their shadows dancing lightly on the sea. The heavens were painted in soft hues: lavender, peach, and the pale gold of possibility. Every detail whispered intention. On the third day, dry land rose up from the deep. Mountains shaped like sleeping giants emerged, and valleys cradled new earth. From this land, green life unfurled. Trees stood like sentinels, and grass blanketed the soil like a lullaby woven in green. Flowers unfolded in silence, as if they too were listening to the heartbeat of creation. Each petal was a note in nature's hymn. Every tree branch reached skyward, as though remembering the hands that formed it. Fruits began to ripen, their colors vivid against the green. There was nourishment, beauty, and the quiet promise of more to come. On the fourth day, the sun took its throne in the sky, not harsh or blazing, but warm and steady. It marked the hours with golden hands. The moon, its faithful companion, rose with gentle grace, casting silver dreams across the surface of the world. Stars scattered like whispers, each one a note in a celestial lullaby. Constellations traced ancient stories, already waiting to be discovered. They blinked like thoughts from the divine, hanging over a world still stretching and waking. The night was not dark, it was velvety, sacred, tender. The fifth day brought movement: birds gliding through the air like painted prayers, and fish weaving through water like thoughts in the deep. There was no fear, only freedom. Each creature knew its place, its purpose. Their existence was a hymn of harmony. Wings beat in rhythm with the waves. Schools of fish shimmered in unison, turning together like a single thought. Every sound was a note in the music of existence: the flap of wings, the splash of tails, the call of voices never heard before. On the sixth day, life walked upon the land. Animals of all shapes and voices, breathing together under the watchful sky. But something else was coming, something made not just from dust, but from intention. From the earth, a form began to rise. Not with violence, but with reverence. A shape molded by unseen hands, guided by love and light. This was not just another creature. This was humanity crafted in the image of the Creator, infused with breath and wonder. Eyes open not to conquer, but to see, to behold. Adam opened his eyes to a world already made perfect for him. The trees bore fruit, the rivers sang. The animals greeted him as if they had waited their whole lives for this moment. He was not alone. In this garden of beginnings, everything whispered welcome. And then, from Adam's own side, another breath. Companion, not an afterthought, but an equal. Eve opened her eyes not into confusion, but into peace. She saw the stars and knew their names. She walked barefoot on the earth, and it responded to her presence. Together, they explored the garden not as masters, but as stewards. They laughed under fig trees, rested beside still waters, and watched sunsets in awe. In every corner of Eden, love was the law. There were no locks, no fears, no shame. They listened for the voice that had called light into being. They walked with the Creator in the cool of the evening, each step a meeting of the divine and the dust. Their days were full, not with tasks, but with wonder. Their nights were silent, not from emptiness, but from peace. The animals knew them, not as threats, but as friends. A lion might curl beside them in the grass. A dove might land on Eve's shoulder. All creation was in harmony. A single sacred breath inhaled and held. The garden was not merely a place, it was a presence. Fruit hung from branches not just to feed, but to delight. Rivers shimmered like veins of the earth, cool and life-giving. Every breeze carried memory. Every leaf held light. The seventh day came not with labor, but with rest. The Creator stepped back, not out of distance, but in delight. Everything was finished, and it was good. Very good. And so the first week of time ended not with exhaustion, but with peace. Not with noise, but with stillness. And this was the beginning of everything. In the stillness of that garden, the world waited. Not for more, but to be known. And perhaps tonight, as you close your eyes, you too can return to that first peaceful beginning. The soft echo of creation humming in your soul. And yet, the story has only begun. From the soil of paradise to the heart of mankind, what comes next is a path of choices, of wonder, and the whispers of eternity still unfolding in the night. But as light lingers on Eden's leaves, a gentle tension begins to rise, not a storm, but a stirring. In the hearts of Adam and Eve, a question flickers soft and curious, like wind through tall grass. For in a corner of the garden, unlike any other, stood a tree, not forbidden in form, nor sinister in shape. It stood radiant, enticing, full of mystery. The tree of knowledge of good and evil. Its fruit glowed as if it knew stories untold. The Creator had spoken of it, not in riddles, but in clarity. To touch it would awaken things they were not ready to carry. But wonder is a weight all its own. Nights fell softly, yet the tree remained. And the question grew louder, not in sound, but in presence. Why not this tree? Why would such beauty be placed beyond reach? Was there more to know? More to feel? More to become? And then, a voice silken and smooth as shadow entered the stillness. Not from the sky, but from the ground. A whisper among roots. The serpent spoke, not with fangs, but with curiosity. Did God really say you must not eat from any tree? In the garden, Eve, thoughtful and calm, replied with truth. But truth can feel brittle when wrapped in doubt. The serpent's eyes held no malice, only certainty. You will not surely die. Your eyes will be opened. You will be like God, knowing good and evil. It wasn't rebellion, it was longing. A desire to understand, to see beyond the veil. And so with trembling fingers, Eve reached. The fruit was warm, pulsing with promise. Her teeth broke its skin, and the world shifted. Not with thunder, but with clarity. Adam followed, love led him. And together, they saw themselves. Naked, not just in body, but in soul. The harmony broke like glass. The breeze, once tender, now felt cold. The animals, once friends, turned their gaze. Shame, unknown until now, settled in their hearts. They hid not just from the Creator, but from themselves. The garden held its breath, and then came the footsteps. The Creator walked as always, yet everything had changed. Not in Him, but in them, Where are you? Not a demand, but a sorrow. A cry not for location, but for connection. And thus began the long journey back to peace. A journey through deserts, through floods, through fire and promise. But even in this first fall, there was grace, a covering, a promise, a whisper of redemption. The gates of Eden closed, not in wrath, but in mercy, to guard the way until the way could return. And as you drift into sleep tonight, let that promise echo in your heart, that even in the fall, love remained, that even in exile, heaven remembered. And next, we sail toward the storm and the promise of an ark that would carry hope across the waters. Before the fall, before the first question ever curled its way into the human heart, there was Eden, a place not marked on any map, but etched into the soul of the world. It was not merely a garden, it was a hush, a heartbeat, a holy breath, held between creation and consciousness. Time passed differently here, if it passed at all. The light was golden, not glaring. The air smelled of sweetness, of dew on fig leaves, of blooming jasmine, of earth untouched by sorrow. Rivers traced the garden like gentle veins, each carrying whispers of life to every corner. And in the midst of this sacred silence stood trees, not in rows, but in rhythm. The tree of life stood tall and generous, its fruit glowing with a soft inner light, flowers bent in reverence to the breeze. Every leaf seemed to shimmer, not just with color, but with meaning. Welcome back to heavenly sleep, where sacred stories cradle you into peace. If this story settles your heart, we invite you to subscribe and rest with us under heaven's watchful gaze each night. Adam walked without fear, his bare feet pressed into soft soil, every step a conversation with creation. Birds didn't flee. At his approach they followed, singing songs without language but rich in melody. He understood them, not with words, but with wonder. He wasn't lonely. Not yet. He spoke with the Creator in the cool of the evening, each word a meeting of soul and spirit. But in the stillness between those moments, a question formed, not of rebellion, but of longing. And so, the Creator shaped an answer from the very bone of man, not an afterthought, but a mirror. Eve. She opened her eyes to the sound of wind in the trees, and knew she was home. No fear, no confusion. Just breath, and beauty, and balance. Together, they moved through Eden as if it were a song written just for them. Their laughter was light, their rest complete. They did not toil. They tended. They did not fear. They named. Everything knew its name, and everything answered in joy. Nights in Eden were not dark, they were deep. Stars hung low, as if listening. Moonlight wrapped the garden in silver silk. Sleep came not from exhaustion, but from fullness. Their dreams were gentle echoes of the voice that had sung the stars into being. The animals lay near, their breathing in sync with the humans they trusted. A lion's purr, a lamb's sigh, the rustle of wings, it was not noise, but a lullaby. Eden sang them to sleep. In this garden, there were no walls, no boundaries between the seen and the unseen. Heaven brushed the earth like a veil. The Creator's presence was not distant. It walked beside them, laughed with them, rested when they did. Each sunrise was a promise. Each sunset, a blessing. Days were not counted. They were cherished, but beneath all this peace, a flicker remained. Not of danger, but of possibility. For in the center of the garden stood a tree unlike the others. Its fruit shimmered not with hunger, but with knowledge. It did not call out, but it remained still, present, patient. And so, while Eden thrived in sacred stillness, a quiet question grew, not loud, not wild. Just there, waiting. Rest now, as the breath of Eden fills your spirit. Let stillness hold you as it once held the first humans. For in this hush, the story is only beginning. In the hush that followed the fall, the world did not scream. It sighed. The garden stood still, the leaves motionless, as though mourning. The breeze no longer danced. It lingered, heavy with a silence that knew what had been lost. Adam and Eve stood just beyond the gates, their hands clasped, their eyes wide not with wonder, but with ache. Behind them, Eden faded into memory, sealed not just by flame, but by time. They walked eastward. The soil felt colder now. The earth, once eager beneath their feet, now groaned with every step. Thorns peeked through the grass like broken promises. The sun still shone, but its light no longer kissed, it pressed. Their skin felt the weight of the world for the first time. Nights were no longer wrapped in peace. Stars that once whispered, now watched. Creatures that once drew near now scattered. And in the quiet of the wild, they built fire, not to see, but to remember the light. Still, they held each other. Not as gods, but as survivors. Not as fallen, but as found. Cain was born in a time of trembling. He came into the world not to rule it, but to wrestle with it. His cry pierced the silence, a note of life in a song still learning its tune. Eve looked at him and whispered, "With the help of the Lord, I have brought forth a man." Her voice cracked, both in pride and in prophecy. Then came Abel, gentler, quieter. He moved through the fields like a shadow of the peace that once was. Where Cain worked the soil, Abel watched the sheep. One fought the ground. The other followed life. The world turned slowly. Seasons circled. Crops rose and fell. The wind carried stories, some true, some twisted. And in the hearts of the brothers, a subtle battle brewed. Not of fists, but of favor. Cain brought his offering with hands that bled effort. Abel brought his with hands that bled reverence. Heaven saw both, but one burned brighter. Jealousy is a whisper at first. It crouches, waits. It watches as love lands elsewhere and asks, "Why not me?" Cain felt it coil around his ribs. He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. He spoke, but his words felt distant. Then came the field, a walk, a word, a wound. The ground drank blood for the first time, not from an animal, but from man. It remembered the taste. It remembered the curse. Abel's voice was silenced, but his soul spoke louder than ever. It echoed into eternity, a cry for justice, for mercy, for meaning. And once again, footsteps approached, not in anger. In grief. "Where is your brother?" Cain could not hide. Not from the voice that had formed stars. Not from the eyes that had shaped Eden, and so he wandered not punished, but marked. Not forsaken, but set apart. The world, now awake to sorrow, grew harder. Cities rose like stone apologies. Families formed and fractured. Music played intense, and iron rang from anvils. Life found rhythm, but peace remained elusive. And yet, through every exile, through every ache, a promise pulsed beneath the dust. That Eden was not erased, only waiting. And tonight, as you close your eyes, may you hear the whisper that even in a world cracked by choice, the breath of the garden still lingers. What comes next is water endless and wild. But even in the flood, there is a vessel, a promise floating on the tide. And now, as the moon climbs higher and the stars press gently against the velvet sky, our story finds its place in your heart. The tale of beginnings, of light and wonder, of innocence and choice, it lingers like the final notes of a lullaby. The garden may be distant, but its memory still hums inside your soul. A memory not of perfection, but of presence. Not of rules, but of relationship. A sacred reflection. What we lost was not simply paradise. But the ease of walking with our Creator, hand in hand, heart to heart. Yet the path back was never sealed. Forever. It wins through wilderness, through waiting, through wonder. And even now, that same voice that once whispered, "Let there be light," still calls your name in the stillness. You are not forgotten. You are not too far. You are not too late. Every breath you take is evidence that creation continues, that grace remains, that love has not given up on you, not even for a moment. Maybe tonight, as you close your eyes, you'll hear the echo of Eden in your chest, the gentle rhythm of divine peace, waiting patiently for your return. Now, let's pray together. Let it be slow. Let it be felt, a gentle prayer for deep sleep and restoration. Heavenly Father, you who spoke galaxies into motion and still find time to sit beside me, thank you for the gift of this story. Thank you for the breath in my lungs, for the beauty I often overlook, for the second chances stitched into every sunrise. Tonight, I surrender the weight I wasn't made to carry. The worries that twist inside my chest, the thoughts that race like storms through my mind. Wash over me now with your perfect peace. Let your love wrap around me like the night wraps around the earth. Let every corner of my being remember I am safe. I am loved. I am home. Forgive what must be forgiven. Heal what is aching. Restore what feels broken or empty or too far gone. And help me believe again that your plans are still good. That Eden isn't just behind me, it's ahead of me too. As I sleep, speak to my heart. In dreams, plant hope. In silence, sing over me. Guard my rest and renew my strength. So when morning comes, I will rise not in fear, but in quiet confidence that you are near. Amen. A final word, just for you. If tonight you feel small, remember, the stars were spoken into being, but you were shaped by hand. If you feel forgotten, know that the voice that once walked in the garden still searches for you in love, still calls, where are you? Not to scold, but to meet you, to hold you, to welcome you back. If you feel tired of the journey, remember, even in the fall, there was grace. Even in the exile, there was a plan. And even now, as your body sinks into rest, heaven leans close watching, protecting, delighting in you. You can let go now. Of the day, of the weight, of the questions. Let the quiet of Eden return to you. Let your dreams carry the light of the beginning, and may you wake not just rested, but renewed. Good night, soul loved. By God. Sleep well. Until the next story finds you.